guys, welcome back. Another episode today, episode 5 in the Java journey. So in our previous episodes, we've learned about variables, we've learned about data types, we've looked at control flow, so if statements, and we've also looked at methods as well in our last episode. So today, we're going to explore arrays, which allow us to store multiple values of the same data type in a single variable. So this is incredibly useful for organizing and processing collections of data. So once again, I am back in my IDE. I'm using JetBrains. You're free to use whatever you like. And let's get started. So I've already created a Java class, so-called arrays. So please go ahead and create that in your IDE now. And what we will do is we're going to go ahead and write our main method once again. So just as a practice, let's get started together. So public static void main, yeah, in brackets, string, in brackets, and args. Cool. Let's open those curly braces up and let's get started, shall we? So how do we go ahead and define a array? So let's go ahead and define a array that would contain integers, right? So get started with me as well again. So type int first, and then initiate your brackets here, and then what we'll call the variable, we'll call it numbers, and then we'll give it an equals, and open up curly braces once again. We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's good enough. Add your semicolon here, and stop. Pause for a second, right? So, what have we just done, right? We've declared an integer array named numbers, okay? So the square brackets that we have right after our data type integer indicates that it's an array, okay? And the curly braces that we're using contain the initial values of the array that we have separated by commas. So numbers is an array that stores integers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so now that we've understood that, let's have a look at how arrays are indexed, okay? So array, the meaning of each element has a specific position, right, or an index. Essentially, the first element of an array has an index of 0, okay? The second element would have an index of 1, and so on and so on and so on. So we can access each of these elements by using their indexes. Head and try something out, and let's write some code, and then we'll explain why we're doing that, okay? So type along with me. So system dot out dot print ln, and we'll go ahead and we'll say first number, and we'll give a colon, and then outside of our string here, we'll just use the plus icon, and then we'll do numbers, which is the name of our variable, and in square brackets here, we'll type the number 0, and we'll go ahead and put a semicolon here, and what we'll do is we'll do the same again, so system dot out dot print ln, and then we'll do, let's do third number. Okay, so third number, colon, and then we'll just do the add, and we'll do numbers, and then in square brackets we'll go ahead and add 2. Perfect. Cool. So now that we've got that, what are we doing here, right? What does this code mean? So let's explain that right now. Okay, so what we're doing is we're going to print out the very first element, which is the number 0, and the third element, right, which is numbers 2, right? Remember that the index starts with 0, so numbers 2 will correspond to the very third element that we have in this array. So let's go ahead and run our main method once again, and here we've got first number, which is 1. That is correct because this is at position 0. Then we have position 2, and we have position 3, and the third number is at position 3. Yeah, which is correct, right? So yeah, this is the third element, right? But it's at position 2 because we start with 0. So hopefully that makes sense. And what we'll do is we'll have a little look at how to process elements in an array. Okay, so what we can do if we wanted to process different things inside of an array, we could have any type of data, right? So what we're going to do is go ahead and use a for loop that we learnt in our last couple of episodes. So let's try and sort of put things together a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and write some code, shall we? So let's get started with our for loop. So let's get started and start typing for, and then open up brackets. What we'll do is we'll say int I is equal to 0, just like we did last time. Make sure they use a little semicolon here, which we'll do. We'll say I is less than numbers, right, dot length. Again, I'm going to explain all of this to you shortly, and then what we'll go ahead and do, add that semicolon and do I plus plus. Open up your curly braces, and inside of this for loop we will do something, right? So system dot out dot print ln, and we'll say element at index, comma, we'll do the colon, we'll go ahead and do plus I, right, and then we'll do a plus, add in a colon, and then what we'll go ahead and do is we'll concatenate, shall we say, numbers I. Fantastic. So we've added that all together. Make sure you add your semicolon here, and let me explain what we are doing here, right? So we want to process all of the elements in the array. We're using a for loop, right? We have introduced something new here, right? Numbers.length, right? So this is something that, or a property that will give us the number of elements that are in the array, right? We can check, how big an array is, right? These are some of the methods that we have available, and length is one of those methods that will return saying, hey, you've got 5 elements in your array, or hi, you've got 15 elements in your array. This is something quite powerful, and you'll be using this quite a lot, trust me on that. So it's good to know, and hopefully we can use this further. So what it's going to do is going to provide us with a number of elements that we've got in our array. We're going to use this value to control the loop to ensure that we iterate through all of the elements inside of the loop, and we can access each element using the index I, right? So I is going to start with 0, which is our first index. We're going to keep iterating through until we hit, till we make sure that we are less than the length of the actual array itself. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and run, and we're going to have a look at what we get in the output of the console. So let's analyze a little bit about what the console displays. So firstly, it displays all of the elements of the array, including all of their indices as well. This is a common way to iterate through arrays and perform operations on each element. So let's look at each element, right? The position of 1 is at index of 0, and then from 1 we have 2, 3, 4, 5, etc, etc, etc. So play around with this, make sure that you can understand like exactly what's going on, because this is going to be crucial and you'll use for loops a hell of a lot. So trust me, you're going to need this. So what we're going to have a look at now is multi-dimensional arrays. So Java supports multi-dimensional arrays, right? That's one thing that's really important, which are arrays of arrays. Now, even just saying that, I know you might think, what is he talking about? What does that even mean, right? So for example, what that means is that it's a 2-dimensional array, right? And that's an example of multi-dimensional arrays, right? So we can use this to represent like a table or a matrix. So we're going to explore multi-dimensional arrays in more detail in future episodes. But just for now, there's been a little bit of homework, you can say. Go ahead and research that, look into it, read some docs, right? See what you can come up with, and definitely we'll cover that in more detail. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is just recap what we've learned today. So we've learned about arrays. Now arrays are collections of elements of the same data type, right? We've learned about array indexing, which is accessing elements using their positions, so their indexes that we've looked at. The length property, right? That we use to get the number of elements in an array. We've looked at iterating through arrays as well, using for loops that we learned previously, and processing through elements, right? So arrays are fundamental data structure in programming, and they allow us to store and manipulate collections of data really effectively. So keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next episode where we'll start exploring object-oriented programming with classes and objects. See you soon.